Welcome to the Survivor to Thriver show with your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Do you feel stuck, silent, and stressed? Is something hurting your heart and soul? Are you burning yourself out? If so, you are in the right place because this is the podcast people from all over the world join in to learn exactly how to stop suffering and start living with inner peace and joy. Let's get started. Hey, so for the last few episodes, we have been talking about what is it that we really need when we find ourselves feeling angry and hateful, when somebody has hurt us or we have suffered some kind of injustice. And more importantly, in some ways, what are the best ways that we can meet those needs? So last episode, we were focusing on the need of acknowledgement. That we have this need to acknowledge that something very wrong's been done. And that it's not okay that wrong was done. And that need for acknowledgement can play itself out at various levels. We can find ourselves wanting acknowledgement on this point in different ways. So for example, I certainly need and want that acknowledgement from myself, right? Insofar as I may have been denying or trying to suppress how I was feeling and what I was needing, right? Because that is a very common defense mechanism that we can often employ to help ourselves cope with the sense of hurt and suffering. It's like, I just can't deal with it right now. I don't want to deal with it right now. So I'm going to deny it. I'm going to suppress it. I'm just going to try and move on without dealing with it. And that's an okay strategy in the short term, but it's not sustainable in the long term. So sooner or later, we have to acknowledge to ourselves that, oh, you know what happened really was wrong and it really did hurt me. It was not okay what happened. You have to come face to face with it. But another thing that can happen, like for example, in my case, as I was struggling to help myself heal and cope and recover from my experience of child sexual abuse, I certainly went into a long period of denial and suppression of my feelings and needs. But even once I began to face up to what happened and acknowledge what happened and even begin to accept that what happened was not my fault, that it was wrong, there was still a part of me that wasn't fully convinced. There was a part of me that continued to blame me and judge me and shame me for what had happened. Okay, so while this was going on, in terms of this internal lack of consistency was going on, I also felt a great need for acknowledgement from others. Like for other people to tell me that what I had experienced was in fact wrong, that it wasn't my fault. Because that acknowledgement from others, it's really not so much a need from acknowledgement itself. It's more a need for validation, right? Because in the absence of my being fully accepting my own sense of, well, it's like, okay, no, so as long as, like I'm continuing to blame and judge myself, right? There's basically, it's because there's a part of me that still does not fully believe that I'm innocent, right? That I'm not at fault. And so as long as that's true, then I need validation from other people to make stronger that part of me that does believe that I'm innocent, that does believe that what happened wasn't my fault, that does see that what happened was just something very, very wrong, right? So that part of me, in order for it to grow stronger, one of the things that can help it is that validation from outside sources, right? Now imagine if the person who hurt me themselves was to come to me and say, oh, Samia, I'm so sorry. What I did to you, it was very wrong. And I recognize that what I did was really wrong. Wow, that would be an incredible source of validation for me, for that part of myself that, really needs to quiet down that voice of blame and judgment and shame and guilt. And I mean the self-blame, the self-judgment, the shaming of myself, right? It's like, yes, of course. If that person who has hurt me themselves comes and acknowledges the wrong in what they've done, that would make life a lot easier for me in terms of being able to accept it for myself more fully. So you can feel like you have this need for that person who has done wrong to you to say sorry to you, to apologize to you, to feel the sense of wrongness that they have committed, right? But here's the thing, that if that is an essential aspect of what we need to meet our need for acknowledgement, then we may be in big trouble, right? Because remember, we cannot control other people. We cannot control how they think, and we cannot control how they feel. To some extent, we cannot even control how they act, right? I mean, we can sometimes, through our behavior, try and compel people. Like, we can try to scare them into it. We can try to dominate them into it, into a temporary submission. But ultimately, people choose to think and feel and act the way that they really want. So if my need for acknowledgement requires this other person to think and feel and act in a certain way, then I may find myself in big trouble. Because ultimately, we cannot control how other people think, feel, and act. See, it's like sometimes we think we can control other people. We think we are controlling other people. But it's an illusion. Okay, so it's like, for example, sometimes we use fear or threats or just like sheer force, sheer power to dominate somebody into submission, into doing what we want them to do or saying what we want them to say. But even in those moments when we think we're controlling this other person, they are actually just choosing to submit. They're choosing to follow along and do what we want, do what we say, because in a situation like that, it's like we each one of us, we make the best decisions that we can with what we know and what we have. And sometimes you're forced to make really difficult choices. So it's like, okay, for example, if you're holding a gun to my head and you're like, okay, give me your wallet or I'm going to shoot. And if I, in that moment, choose to give you my wallet, it's not because I don't have a choice. It's because I choose to give you my wallet, and I'm making that choice because I don't like the alternative. I think that resisting, the consequences of resisting your command or request or whatever you want to call it, is going to cause more harm for me. And I'm not willing to deal with that. I'd much rather just give you my wallet. So I'm giving you my wallet. But you cannot force me to give you my wallet. Right? Because I can choose to not give you my wallet and face the consequences of that. Maybe if I feel confident, like maybe I have the capacity, like maybe I know really good self-defense in terms of how to disarm you. And if I feel confident enough in my ability to disarm you, you could be like, give me your wallet or I'll shoot, and I make the choice to, instead of giving you my wallet, to attempt to disarm you. Okay? Or I may say, no, just shoot me then. I may make that choice. It's like, I can't disarm you, but I'm not about to give you my wallet. And you can shoot me if you want. And then you can take the wallet from my cold, dead hands. Right? So I have choices. And I make the best choice for me in that moment. The best choice from my perspective with what I know and what I have. So even when we think we're controlling someone else, we're not. But guys, that is actually a really, really good thing, right? Because just as I don't get to control anyone else, they don't get to control me either. So it's like, wow, that's great, because no one can control the way I think or feel or act. Wow, so I get to maintain my sense of power and control over my own thoughts and feelings and actions. And that's like really, really valuable. So it's like, okay, all right. Okay, we can't control others. We can't make someone else feel bad. We can't make someone else realize that they've done something wrong. We can't make someone else apologize for what they have done. So it's like, okay, if that happens, in your case, if you've been hurt by someone and that someone comes and apologizes to you, good. That's actually great. But don't depend on it. And know that you don't have to depend on it. It is entirely possible, and this is the good news, that it is in fact entirely possible for us to heal, for us to move on in our lives, to achieve inner peace, even in the absence of that other person apologizing to us, or acknowledging, or realizing, or recognizing their mistake. And that is actually exactly what happened in my case, right? Because to this day, the person who sexually abused me, they have yet to acknowledge to me that, hey, I did this to you and it was really, really wrong and I'm sorry. So, my gosh, I mean, I am so grateful and thankful that this is not a requirement, or that this was not a requirement for me to be able to find healing and inner peace in my life. Because otherwise I'd still be suffering, I'd still be hurting, I'd still be feeling angry and resentful and hateful. Now, what was required for me to achieve inner peace and healing was the transformation of my own inner critic. Those voices of blaming, self-blame and self-judgment and self-shame that told me, no, this is your fault. That why didn't you, ask for help? Why didn't you speak up sooner? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? To protect yourself, to save yourself, prevent that injustice from happening, prevent that abuse from happening. So it's like loving kindness, right? We're going back to that concept of loving kindness, using loving kindness as a way to transform these voices of negative blame and judgment and shame and guilt into compassion and empathy, which acknowledges our pain, which acknowledges that, hey, yes, there was something very wrong that happened and that it was very hurtful. And there's nothing wrong with me for feeling the way that I do. Are you starting to appreciate, the depth of wisdom in the loving kindness meditation, the format of it? Just it's so simple, and yet, wow, it just encapsulates so much wisdom. And if you just practice it, you will, even if you don't fully understand like how it's so helpful, why it's so helpful, you will find that it just is helpful, right? Because remember, right now, today, I'm speaking with you from an awareness of and an understanding of, okay, this is what was happening, and this is what I really needed, and this is the best way to meet that need. But it's all like from a position of having grown in my wisdom, grown in my learning, and the skills that I have. Even 10 years ago, I didn't have the tools and the knowledge and the understanding that I do now. But but when I started to learn about these tools, even in the absence of complete understanding of why they were helpful, I began to practice them, and they began to help me. Okay, so that is what I have to offer to you as well right now. That, look, on the one hand, I want to encourage you to think critically about what I'm saying. Because, there's a very good reason why we have our critical thinking abilities and our critical thinking faculties. We need to use them. But on the other hand, it is also true that we are not always able to understand everything that we need to about something in time, right, where it's like, okay, wow, I need to just begin to apply this knowledge now. And there's a certain a leap of faith that we need to take, that look, if this is a technique or a tool that has been practiced by other people who have been through the kind of thing, the kind of challenge that I'm struggling with right now, and it has worked for them. Even if I don't have 100% understanding of how this tool works, that I will nonetheless take a certain leap of faith and just begin to employ it for myself, to practice it for myself, and just test it out. And as I test it out, as I practice it, as I employ it, that very process will help me to achieve a better, clearer understanding of how it works, or why it works, or why maybe it doesn't work, or why it may not be working for me. So just give this a try. You know now how to engage in the loving kindness meditation. And by the way, if you missed those earlier episodes when I was talking about the loving kindness meditation, you can either go back and listen to them now, or just go online, Google loving kindness meditation. You'll get like so many different websites that will give you detailed instructions and even guided audio tracks for practicing loving kindness meditation. So just give yourself this gift, begin the practice. Even as you continue to engage in a critical thinking process of what is this about, why is this helpful, why it might or might not work. And let me know what you're thinking, let me know what you're feeling. If this is something you find yourself struggling with, remember, you don't need to continue to struggle with it on your own. You will make your life so much easier if you reach out for help and support. And I'm one person that you can reach out to for the help and support that you need. Just go to my website at www.academyofthriving.com. Click on the Contact Us page, and you will see different options for connecting with me. So until we connect next time, I wish you lots of peace and joy.